me know in the comments. Let me know you are here. I will be live with you in 1 minute. Good morning. Happy Friday. How the heck are you? Welcome to Men Up with Mike. My name is Mike Cameron, and I will be your host today. We are going to talk a little bit about men and vulnerability. We're going to talk about the importance of, the benefits of, the value of, and then we're going to talk a little bit about the how-to, because I think that's something that often gets missed. We talk about awareness all the time, we talk about these things, but how do we actually practice? How do we actually implement? So that is what I want to cover today. Good morning, Kathleen. Yes, thank you. My song is still on. I almost forgot. I didn't almost forget. I actually forgot that the music was still running. Kathleen, this is Kathleen's favorite song. I think I'll be in trouble if I ever want to change that tune. I will lose a follower. Yeah, got you guys. Hey, Jorgen, how are you, man? Are you moving yet? When are you guys out of town? Getting the heck out of Dodge. Not a bad thing. Drop me a note in the comments, friend. Let me know you are here. We got Kathleen and Jamie, Jorgen, and a few others I see. I am so glad to see you here on this chilly Friday morning. This morning, Michelle and I got out early for a round of hills. I will show you. Let me see. Yeah, there we go. Look at that. There's a couple of keeners, hey? There's a couple of keeners. We were out at 6 o'clock this morning running hills up and down by the Riverside Golf Course there. And yeah, it was a little chilly. It was funny. I've been having trouble with one of my teeth. I'm probably feeling like I'm going to need a root canal, but the sorest thing on my body this morning when we were running up and down hills in minus 28 or whatever it was my tooth. So yeah, that was a bit of a problem. And I was actually a little concerned today that I might have to actually cancel some of my meetings today because my tooth was absolutely killing me. But I think it was just the coldness. Jorgen, you are always invited. All right. I will put you on the list. I don't know. I just show up. Yeah. Tooth troubles are not fun. All right. We're 4 minutes in and I haven't even talked about the theme today. We are talking about men and vulnerability. So I want to talk a little bit about the importance of vulnerability for men. I feel like this is a message we're starting to hear more and more of. And my worry always when we get awareness starting to happen, we, oh, sorry, Jorgen. Yes, Jorgen, I will make sure we message you. I don't know. I just show up when I'm told. Michelle says we're running hills in the morning. I say, okay, I'm in. I am in. All right. So men and vulnerability. Again, I think it's one of these things that we're starting to hear a lot of conversation about. But like I said, my fear always when we start having lots of conversations about a specific topic, especially about a topic that is challenging, is that it becomes easy to sort of ignore and yep, I know it, I get it, I understand it, and then we carry on. So the question becomes, how do we actually implement, how do we actually practice vulnerability? And maybe more importantly, why? Why should we bother practicing vulnerability? Is vulnerability important? Is vulnerability something that we should put on our list of things we should be doing? And I would submit that yes, absolutely it is. So let's cycle around as to why I believe vulnerability, and especially for men, is important. So if you've listened to me talk, you know that I've studied the impact that emotion has on human behavior for the last 20, 25 years. Yeah, I'm getting old. It's got to be 25 plus years now. And it's just fascinating to me to really look at how we as human beings make decisions based on emotion. And we justify that with logic. Antonio Damasio talked about emotion is the edifice upon which reason is built. Emotion is the foundation that reason is built upon. It's not the other way around. It's emotion first, reason is built on top of that. So if we accept the fact that we make decisions based on emotion, we know that the decisions we make drive the behaviors we take. The behaviors we take ultimately drive the results that we get. Therefore, it becomes important to understand those underlying emotions that drive those decisions we make. So, where does vulnerability come into this? Well, as one of my favorite speakers talks about, writers, Brene Brown talks about, vulnerability is the core of all emotion. Vulnerability is the key that unlocks emotion. So why is that important to practice? Because we can't really get deep into our hearts, into our feelings, into our emotions, without going through that lens of vulnerability. And as guys, that's incredibly difficult to do. It's incredibly difficult to do because we've been taught for ages that vulnerability is weakness. That if I show that I'm vulnerable, if I show up vulnerably, somebody's going to stomp on me. Somebody's going to cut me down. But the reality is that it is the exact opposite. So when we show up with vulnerability to those that we trust, those that have earned the right to see us in our vulnerable moments, because it's not for everybody, but for those that have earned our trust, for those that have earned the right to see the real us, when we show up vulnerably, we have the opportunity to dive deep into our hearts and understand what it is we feel. The more vulnerable we get, the deeper we can feel. The deeper we can feel, the more rich our experience here on this planet is. The deeper our experience, the more full our life is, the more we can tap into that inner purpose, that why are we here? Anne says vulnerability confirms you're human. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And again, for guys, this becomes really challenging because we tend to put vulnerability very low on that personal development, that leadership development scorecard. When we're looking at where can I improve, we often look at things like physical fitness, running hills Friday morning in -28. We look at academic fitness. We look at physical fitness, getting out, lifting weights at the gym, getting stronger. We look at all of these sort of other things. We look at power, we look at wealth, we look at money, we look at status, we look at prestige, but very rarely do we look at vulnerability. So the question becomes, how then if we accept that vulnerability is the core of all emotions, emotions drive our decisions, decisions drive our behaviors, behaviors drive our results. Boom, 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 boom. It's all comes together in a line. So how then do we practice vulnerability? And this one for me was a bit of an epiphany. It took a little bit of time for me to get to a point where I understood how to do this. Vulnerability, you see, by definition, vulnerability is not something that you can practice alone. When we talk about a lot of these other personal development tools, we talk about journaling, we talk about mindfulness, we talk about yoga, we talk about physical fitness. These are all things that you can practice alone. But vulnerability, by definition, requires you to show up in front of somebody else in a vulnerable, true, and authentic way. It requires you to open your heart to somebody else. It requires more than one person. So how do we practice vulnerability? Again, I'm going to come back to one of my favorite words, and that's intention. We practice with intention. So given that we know we need more than one person, vulnerability isn't something we can practice ourselves. We need to find our people. Who is it that we can practice being vulnerable with? Our intimate partner, our kids, people that we trust. But where can we expand that circle? How do we get to a point where we can practice being vulnerable outside that very small circle of people, like I said, maybe our intimate partner, maybe our kids? So this is the reason that I started Connected Men, a men's group. We create a space every single week for guys to come together and literally practice feeling, practice being vulnerable, practice sharing parts of themselves that maybe they don't share with anyone else on this planet. But this is an intentional space where we can get together, we can drop the masks, we can let go of that armor, we can shed that armor that we all wear so well. And we can actually practice vulnerability. Again, when it comes to physical fitness, we know if we want to get stronger, we run hills. If we want to get stronger, we go lift weights at the gym on a regular basis. Yet when it comes to our emotional fitness, what do we do for that? And again, the answer for most of us is jack shit. We don't do anything. Anne says vulnerability is something a guy is not supposed to practice, suggests he isn't a real man. Yet in fact, it shows a man is simply a man with feelings just like anybody. Yeah, absolutely, Anne. Absolutely. And again, this is about having the courage to show up as your real and authentic self. It's about having the courage to drop the mask. Showing up with vulnerability is one of the most courageous things you can ever do. We tend to, as guys, put a lot of emphasis and value on things like, I run ultra marathons, running 100-mile ultra marathon. That's tough. You know what? In fact, that's a lot easier than showing up with authenticity and vulnerability to my partner. And maybe saying I love you when you don't know if that's going to come back. That's vulnerability. Maybe showing how you really feel. Not knowing what's going to come back. Putting yourself out there. Doing something nice for somebody without knowing there's going to be any benefit or reward. Sharing your story powerfully and vulnerably. The impact that can have on others is profound. Sean says presence, but it needs to be received. Yeah, Sean, I would argue that it doesn't need to be received. Again, you're going to show up vulnerably with those you trust. It's going to be done with people who have earned the right to see the real you. Whether they receive it or not, you still show up. It doesn't change the way you show up. It may change your decision about how much you interact with those people, how much you want them in your life, but it doesn't need to change the way that you show up. Showing up vulnerable, showing up powerful, in my opinion, are synonymous. And again, that doesn't mean that we do it willy-nilly, that we're, again, we talk about this in business all the time, in negotiations. Do we really lay all our cards on the table? And sometimes that's a smart thing to do. Sometimes that is an excellent strategy. But the beautiful thing about showing up with vulnerability is it does allow us to dive deep into our hearts, deep into how we feel. And when we can explore that on a more full, on a deeper basis, it just changes the way we see things. It changes the way we see life. It changes the way we show up. In fact, it changes everything. For me, that was a real epiphany. After I split with my ex-wife back in 2012, I started really looking internally and doing that inner work. I found yoga, I found meditation, I got into physical fitness. I did all those solo practices because as men, that's what we do. I don't need help. I'm good. I got this. But what I realized was the piece that I was missing was that vulnerability. And circling back to that, you can't practice vulnerability alone. Having the courage to reach out and say, hey, maybe I don't got this. Maybe I do need some help. Maybe there's areas where I've got this. Maybe there's areas where I can help you. But maybe there's areas where I need help too. And having the courage to show up like that. Again, it's just this opening, this expansion of everything in our lives. Life becomes richer, more colorful, more beautiful, more full. And that's when we can start to really tap into that purpose, our reason for being, our why. When we start putting it all out there, that's when it all starts coming back in. Anne says, have the courage to be vulnerable. Sean, never stop showing up. Absolutely. Absolutely. So my question for you today is, where can you be more intentional about showing up with vulnerability? Where can you be more intentional about showing up as your real and authentic self to somebody you care about, somebody you love? All right, before we wrap, I've got to remind you, for those interested in writing your book, sign up for the Writing on Purpose workshop group coaching session we've got coming up. You can get there at mikecameron.ca. There should be a link on the front page that will take you to the Writing on Purpose page. You can reserve your spot, $99 deposit, reserve your spot. It's $199 a month. We're going to go for at least 4 months or until you finish your book. That's it, man. We've got Dr. Linda Tucker, who is a professor of English at the University of Arkansas, and the owner, founder of Cup and Quill Editing, is going to join us. We're going to get together every week. We're going to dive deep into what's your why, what's your reason, what's your message, how are you going to get this thing started? How do I start? That's usually the biggest question. And we're going to take you all the way through to a completed manuscript, assuming you do the work. And we're going to teach you what you need to do as far as publishing goes, book layout, cover art, all of those things. We're going to teach you what you need to do, where you need to go, and how you need to do that. We're not going to do that for you, but we're going to show you all of the steps to get from zero to published book if you're willing to do the work, we will get you there absolutely. So spots are filling up quickly. If you are interested, either shoot me a private note. I'm happy to have a conversation with you if you want to explore if this is really right for you. I've had a couple of those conversations. Yeah. So I feel like there was one other thing I wanted to share with you, but it's kind of gone now. It's kind of gone. Oh, I know. Later today, I will be I put out a personal development scavenger hunt for one of my coaching groups. And we had a lot of fun with it. It was pretty eye-opening. So I'm actually publishing a video later today that will walk you through this scavenger hunt. This will be a free thing. It'll just be for fun. It's going to be like minus 7,000 here in Edmonton this weekend. I think it's going to get as low as minus 40. So if you're looking for something to do, this little personal development scavenger hunt gives you sort of 7 days of activities, things that you can follow along that will help you grow. And I would love it if you would join in on that and let me know how that goes for you. All right, my friend. As always, continue to make beautiful shit happen. Have yourself a fantastic day, and we will see you